First off, I want to thank the brave men and women who work behind the wall. I want to thank them on a national level because their job goes unrecognized.
How do they try to turn a guard?
Well, correctional officer. Sorry, I apologize. But correctional officer. How you guys doing today? Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Today we're going to discuss how inmates will circumvent the power of authority from that frontline officer or from that frontline staff member. I think it's going to be a great dialogue. I'm going to discuss a few ways that they do it. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list. I would love for you guys to also complement this dialogue, add some of your experience as well. A lot of new people are checking out this Tier Talk channel, so it's good for them to kind of get an understanding of the different games that inmates can play. And I think it's great that I start the dialogue and then you guys come in and also complement the dialogue. But I think it's a great discussion. We're talking about making sure that our staff holds on to that level of authority and they're not so quick to give it up. Some of the actions will require the officer to step up. Some of the actions will require the supervisor to do something. But I think it's a great dialogue. And again, it's not all inclusive. And I'm very interested in reading your comments to see some of your experiences. Now, again, we're going to be talking about circumventing that power of control when we come back from our sponsor. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talks for you brave men and women that work in correction, so please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. I stand by for a sponsor.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Thank you guys for listening to our sponsor. You know, I'm very curious your comments on this because this is a good dialogue where we talk about experience here because these are subtle tricks that inmates can play to circumvent your power of authority. So I'm very interested in hearing some of your stories. And again, the list I'm providing is not an all-inclusive list. I'm going to just do 3 scenarios. So I'm curious to see what other scenarios that you come up with. One of the first scenarios I could think of right off the bat is when you have a person in a high level of authority and inmates try to get into that light. They try to associate with those individuals and then try to use their power as their own. So you got these people that have earned these higher positions, and then you get an inmate that comes in, a manipulative inmate, that comes in and tries to just steal that light. Tries to steal that light by association. And I'm going to give you an example. And again, you know, tell me what your thoughts are on each example. I'm very curious. But in this case here, I could think of real quick porters. Porters that clean the administrative offices. So when you get a porter that cleans, let's say, the administrative offices, administration, their relationship with that porter should be, if anything, quick. It should be just the quick cordials, the hi and bye, of course, will be respectful, and what it is they have to do, good job, it's done, that's it. There should be no dialogue in the middle. The reason why is, one thing is you get these social butterfly inmates who, you know, will look to build a connection with that staff member, the higher level, and they'll look to socialize, shoot the breeze, hang out there, really not do any cleaning. And staff sees that. And staff's looking at that and they're like, you know, if I want to go talk to an administrator, I got to go through all these levels of command, and this inmate's got that direct route, you know, and it disenfranchises staff a little bit. That's one thing. And by the way, the inmate wants the staff member to see that. That's why it's done out in the open. Also, when the inmate's seen in that same light as the higher level, the inmate's going to try to bring that light to, let's say, the unit. And then when the officer has a problem with that inmate and they go to write the inmate up, that inmate's going to drop your name, the administration's name, you know, whoever the administrator is or whoever. He'll be quick to say something subtle like, you sure you want to do that? Because don't forget I clean the administration's office. Like, all right, what does that mean? I'm still going to do my job. The inmate's going to try to utilize that tool to disenfranchise the officer or the staff member from doing what's supposed to be done. And we can't allow that to ever happen. You can't have staff that's disenfranchised because they're not going to do their job. And that's because we made the environment that way. We made the environment to the point where the staff member's like, you know what? I'm not going to write him, because if I write him, you know, even though the inmate did something wrong, you know, he's going to be protected by admin. So what we have to do is 2 things here. Once Never get disenfranchised if you're a frontline staff member. Always write the inmate up. If they're doing something wrong, write it up. Don't let that get you. Still do your job. For the person in the higher level, don't be that duck. You know, make the inmate known. This is the relationship. It's done. You know, you come here, you work. That's it. You know, hi, bye, done. When the officer comes up to you and tells you, hey, yo, this inmate's throwing your name around here in the hopes that it's going to get him out of trouble, fire the inmate immediately. That's it. Done. He's throwing my name out, fired. Done. If I find out that, you know, if you find out that your name is being utilized to eliminate that officer's level of control or that staff member's level of control, remove the inmate. That's the best way you can give that power of control back to that officer. And plus, that officer or that frontline staff member is also protecting you, because he's telling you, yo, this inmate's throwing your name around, saying that you said this and you said that. So that frontline staff member is coming up to you, watching out for you, making sure that you're not being used as a pawn. So again, give that level of power back to that officer by removing that inmate. Don't allow that to happen. Don't allow an inmate to stand in your light, a light that you worked your ass off to get, and then go ahead and just steal that light and utilize that light to take power from your frontline professionals. So again, that's one example. I'm curious to see if you guys think that has ever happened to you. Just curious to see what your perspective is on that. Okay, the second scenario I could think of is when you get that supervisor that in an effort to solve the concern, maybe just an effort to get out of paperwork, they ignore the officer's charge. And I'll tell you how that can happen, because this does relate to an inmate circumventing their level of authority. So let's say I'm having an issue with an inmate and it's getting to the point where the inmate's now ignoring my direct order. I'm getting ready to write the inmate up. So I call the supervisor for assistance, getting ready to write that charge. And when the supervisor comes in an effort to solve the problem, they talk to me to see what the issue is. A legit issue. I gave the inmate a legit order and they're choosing not to follow it. And then when they go to talk to the inmate comes up with a million excuses of why they're not going to follow the order, and some of it mostly personal. And the sergeant listens to them, and then the inmate goes, you know what, Sarge, since you're here and since you're telling me that I have to do the order, I'll do it. So then the sergeant thinks, well, issue's resolved, inmate's doing the order, I'm not going to have to do any paperwork now, so I'll go back and talk to the officer and correct the issue. They go back and they go to talk to the officer, and they tell the officer, okay, listen, the issue's resolved, the inmate's going to do what you asked him to do. I was able to talk him down, so we'll just get rid of the paperwork. And the officer's going to be like, whoa, wait a second, though. The inmate disrespected me. I gave him an order, it was a legit order, and he chose not to follow it. She chose not to follow it. So I'm still going to charge the inmate. You know, and another thing is that when you came in, you were helping me deal with the charge. I called you in because I'm writing the inmate a charge because they refused my direct order. I'm not going around that. So again, I know that, you know, the inmate may have told you something, but at the end of the day I'm writing the inmate a charge for disobeying a direct order. And I need your help and support with that charge, and that's why I called you in. And what's also insulting, Sarge, is that the inmate took the order from you, but not from me. So you as a supervisor should have brought the inmate back to me and given me that level of respect. Because now the inmate's going around me, going to you, saying, well, I'll do it for you and not for him. So if you want me to get my power back, that inmate should have been brought back to me. Again, the inmate's still going to get charged, but that inmate needs to be reminded of my position of authority, and you just took it away when you're trying to tell me to not write him up, and also okay with the fact that they'll listen to you and not to me. So again, the best way for a supervisor to solve that is to support the officer. Don't let the inmate manipulate themselves out of a charge, and also remind that inmate of their place in that hierarchy. Don't let them, you know, skip ahead, because again, if it was a legit order and the officer didn't do nothing wrong, the officer did what they were supposed to do, support that officer. And again, as a supervisor, you investigate the concern, but how you deal with it, especially if the officer is correct or that frontline professional is correct, literally will affect your staff. It will affect your staff. So make sure you do the right thing. The last thing I could think of right off the top of my head, I'm curious again to see what you guys can add to this dialogue, is when inmates come up with bogus complaints. You gotta realize something. You'll get a lot of good officers or a lot of good staff members that they do their job and they put a little pressure on the inmate. And the inmates will come up with these bogus complaints that can even go as far up as admin, because they want that officer out of the unit, especially if that officer is good at getting contraband. So you get these complaints, and sometimes administration or sometimes supervisors will run blindly on these complaints without realizing that you have a good cop that's doing their job, and now you just took away their power and their ability to do their job. So you got to make sure that these complaints are properly investigated, yes, but make sure they're not being done in a manner where it circumvents the power of authority from the officer or the staff member who's doing their job. Again, a lot of inmates, when they're in fear of getting in trouble from that officer who's getting close to finding something, they'll start putting in complaints about that officer. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for those inmates who use the grievance system as a way to manipulate a mean to an end. And at the end of the day, you're removing officers that are doing their job, and eventually that's going to disenfranchise them. Because here I am, I'm doing searches, I'm getting contraband, but I'm also being written up for it. Come on, guys. Again, love to hear what your thoughts are. Just, if you can, comment, interact, engage. That's the key. I'm just very curious to see where this dialogue can go. And as always, guys, the show is here. Talk if you haven't. Please subscribe, hit that bell, and I'll see you next time.